Excellent, excellent. So, good morning, everyone joining in from Israel, and good afternoon or good evening to the ones joining from Asia. This is the third session of our ISA webinar, and I must say the best one because we had some practice sessions and tech difficulties in the session prior to this one. Hopefully, no tech difficulties in this specific webinar. And today we have a different kind of investment content than the ones we've had before. We're not talking about VCs, we're not talking about family offices. We're talking about the kind of investors that we don't usually engage with, but actually there is a potential to engage with them. And with the support of ISA, I hope that we're able to do it. Because the purpose of this webinar is to provide us the tools to engage with this different type of investors, which are usually the ones that we less engage with, which are institutional investors. And the investment strategy of these investors is mostly directed to investing in stocks and bonds. And therefore, the agenda of this webinar is to provide you the content to convey to such investors in order to allow them to direct their investments to the Israeli capital market and thus support the Israeli tech and also non-tech ecosystem. So our guides in today's journey are Charlotte Naor, Head of International Investment at the International Affairs and Market Development Department at the ISA, Israeli Securities Authority, and also Shuval Barazani, who is a team member of the International Affairs and Market Development Department at ISA. So Charlotte, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ofer. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Charlotte, and I work at the International Affairs and Market Development at the ISA. So the ISA is the Israeli Securities Authority, and I'm responsible there for international investments. So over the next hour, I'll give you a general overview of the Israeli public capital market and the role of the ISA. So the goal of the presentation is to provide you insights and practical tools to help you better understand the Israeli public capital market. So maybe for some of you, I will talk sometimes about topics that might be more familiar than others, but anyway, I hope you'll find it useful and that you'll be able, to apply it in your daily work, maybe when you will meet with investors in your country. And just so you know, I'd love to stay in touch with you after the session. And if you ever need clarifications, or if you're working with investors who would like to hear more about the Israeli public capital market, I'd be happy to set up a one-to-one session with you, or also with people that you will meet. So keep in touch. Okay, so first, if it's okay for you, let's begin by discussing the Israel's financial regulatory structure and the role of the ISA. And after that, we'll talk about the main stakeholders in the public capital market, like funds, index providers, and so on. Then we'll talk about the Israeli's capital market itself. After that, we'll discuss on Israel's selling points, meaning that what are the Israel's strengths and what makes our market so attractive for foreign investors. And finally, we will explore also the international regulatory cooperation that we have in Israel with the many countries in the world. Okay, so first, let me give you a bit background on Israel's financial regulatory framework. So how does it work? We have in Israel three main financial regulators, each of them responsible for a different part of the market. So first, we have the ISA, okay, the Israeli Securities Authority, that regulates the public capital market, and it includes publicly traded companies, mutual funds, investment advisors, and the stock exchange itself. We have also the BOI, it's the Bank of Israel, and Bank of Israel is in charge of supervising banks and monetary policy in Israel. And we have the Capital Market Authority, and it regulates institutional investors like pension funds or insurance companies. And just you to have a deeper look of what exactly we do at the ISA. So as I said, the ISA is the main regulator in Israel of the public market. We oversee around 330 publicly traded companies on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, the TASE, and we also oversee mutual funds, underwriters, stock exchange, trading platforms, and lately we also oversee payment companies. Now, if you compare, the ISA to other regulatory bodies like the SEC in the US or the FCA in the UK, you won't find a market development department in the regulator itself. Actually, it's not common at all. But in Israel, because the country places a strong focus on developing its financial public market, this department was created. So our mission is not only to develop the market locally, but it's also to engage with market participants worldwide. And it's also, to align Israel with global standards and make the market as attractive as possible for global players. Now, ISA's mission, so the Israeli Securities Authority, our mission is simple. The first mission, the main mission, is to protect investors. Actually, it's a common mission of all the securities regulator in the world. So first, our mission is easy, regulation. We make the regulation, but it's not only regulation, it's also supervision and enforcement. And we make sure that the market is fair, transparent, and free from fraud. So our job at the ISA is to protect investors and maintain market integrity. And second, and that's less usual for regulators, as I said earlier, we are here to develop the Israel's capital market. So we work to make it more, attractive, innovative, and efficient for both investors and for companies. And, it's important to understand that the public capital market is much more than just, a place to trade stocks or bonds. It's a key pillar of the Israeli economy. And why? Why is it so important? So first, it helps to reduce the cost of raising capital and increase competition. So when a company wants to raise money, the company needs to raise money, to grow, to develop, the company can, go to the bank, ask for a loan, and pay high interest rates. Or the company can also issue stocks or bonds on the capital market, the public capital market, instead of, going to the bank. And it gives to the company more options. And also, at the end, it promotes competition in the financial system. So it's a very good venue. And also, the public capital market, and it's also the big difference with the private capital market. The public capital market is regulated, it's transparent, and it's liquid. So, and also, we try to make the regulation as clear as possible for for the investors, and because we want them to feel safe in there. And also, by the way, it's a saving, it's like a saving solution for the public. The public, when I say public, I'm talking about the retail investor that, it's you, me, it's not the institutional investors, and it's a way to grow your wealth, so to put your money in the public capital market. So I hope it was clear that it's important to understand that at the end, a strong public capital market means a strong economy. So when the capital market works well, businesses have easier access to funding, liquidity improves, it's great for innovation and of course for competition. So at the end, everyone, and also you and me, benefits from economic growth. So, and we saw that, in the world, countries with strong and efficient capital markets tend to have a successful economy. And that's exactly what we are working on at the ISA. So when we talk about the public capital market, we really talk about, the balance between the supply and the demand. On one side, you have investors, looking for opportunities. Okay, so they are looking for where to invest in. And on the other side, companies that are looking to raise capital to grow capital. So on the demand side, we have investors. So as we said, like institutional investors, retail investors, so you and me, and foreign investors. You have also on the demand side index companies. We'll talk about it later. On the supply side, you have the public that are issuing stocks and bonds, public companies, and also mutual funds. And between those two sides, we have the bodies that are here to facilitate market activity. So it can be investment banks, underwriters, credit rating agencies, brokers, stock exchange, etc. And in our department, so at the ISA, we focus on the side of the demand. Why? Because we want to increase demand for the Israeli market by bringing more and more international investors. So to understand, how the public capital market operates, we need to know who are the main players, who are the main stakeholders in the capital markets. Okay, so, well, when a company wants to grow and to expand, it needs money, it needs funds. So the company, as I said earlier, can go to the bank and take a loan, but it's usually very expensive. Or, the company can also go to the capital market itself and raise funds. And there are two main ways to raise funds. The company can issue bonds or issue shares. So what does it mean to issue shares? It means that the company sells a part of its ownership to the public. So shareholders get voting rights, dividend rights, and also a claim on the company assets. And the second way is to issue bonds. So it means that the company can borrow money from investors and the company will have to pay it back with interest. So the bondholders don't get the ownership or voting rights. And the company, can raise funds without giving up control. So it's quite different. But bonds and shares are, traded in the stock exchange, and those are the two main methods to raise capital on the public capital market. And when we talk about capital markets, actually, we need also to talk about the role of index providers. So index providers, I'm sure you've heard about, S&P, MSCI, FTSE. Actually, those are the three main index providers in the world. So what do they do, index providers? So let me give you a quick overview of that. Well, index providers decide, okay, which securities are included in major index, okay? So what does it mean? It means that an index provider, they classify stocks, okay? So they choose with, factors like market cap, sector, okay? If a stock is in the sector of the technology, of the finance, of the energy, and also country ranking. If it's a developed country or developed market, emerging market, or frontier market. And with all of this, they make an index. For example, MSCI emerging market, MSCI World Developed Market, for example. It's like a name of an index, and it includes stocks that are classified with those kind of classification. And by the way, MSCI reclassified Israel in 2010. It was before 2010, Israel was considered as an emerging market. Now Israel is a developed market. And also, if Israel is added or removed, or Israel or any country actually is added or removed from a key index, it directly impacts capital inflows into the capital market, into the Israeli capital market. So just to be clear, index provider, they play a major role in global investment trends and really influence where the capital flows. For example, you have an index that is MSCI World. So it includes hundreds of companies, big companies in the world. 70% of the index is made by, is taken by, American companies, and Israel in that index, so in that index that is MSCI World, takes the share of Israel is something like 0.4%. Okay, so maybe it means that
0.37.
Yeah, 0.37%.
Yes.
So maybe it seems like very small, but actually we are talking about an index that the market cap of all the index, it's about, I think, $80 trillion. $80 trillion, so it's huge. And if even 0.37% of $80 trillion goes directly to Israeli companies. When someone buy this index, it's a passive investment. The investor, that buy an index it doesn't know that there is like 10 companies that are Israeli company, but when someone buys this index, it directly goes to the Israeli market.
If I can just add in, Charlotte, just to clarify to everyone, if you're talking about a market of $10 billion in MSCI World, which is actually just a small fraction of the actual investment, that means it's $370 million funneling into the Israeli capital market. That's a lot of money, and that's part of what the fuel that makes the Israeli capital market move on and roll. So that's just showcasing the importance of adding Israel to these indices. And again, this is part of what ISA is doing. So please, Charlotte, move on. Sorry to barge in.
No. Thank you. And it's good that you corrected me. It wasn't 80 trillion, excuse me. It was 80 billion. So it's okay that follow the MSCI World.
Just a zero.
Yeah, just a zero, nothing more. Okay. Okay, so let's recap. We talked about public companies and index providers. Then we have two other major groups. We have underwriters and we have fund managers. So underwriters, so what do they do? First of all, underwriters, usually it's like a department of an investment bank company. And it's a department that is in charge to help companies to raise money, companies that want to issue bonds or stocks. So the underwriter is here to help them. So the underwriter take on, some of the risk, because if not enough investors buy the securities, they buy the risk. So in short, when a company wants to issue bonds or stocks, the company needs to have an underwriter to help it. And we have also fund managers. So fund manager, they manage like the money of others. So fund managers, we have like mutual funds, hedge funds, pension funds, all of them are fund managers. Now, we have talked about the public capital market in general. So it was, it was for all, it was really general. And now let's dive in, the Israeli capital market itself and why it is so unique. Well, okay, let me give you a quick overview of the Israeli capital market in numbers. And honestly, they are pretty impressive for a small country like Israel. So first, I don't know if you know, but between 2020 and 2024, we had in Israel around 140 IPOs, which is a huge number. And it shows, really a strong market expansion. So we have a total of 600 public companies on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and only and 140 IPOs were just in the year of 2021. It was a real IPO boom. And Actually, it was a record-breaking year for Israel. But after that, the number of IPOs slowed down. But actually, it wasn't just in Israel. We saw the same trend across major global stock exchange. It was for many reasons, high interest rates all over the world, inflation also all over the world, and wars, of course, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, etc. And all of this impacted, the IPO activity worldwide. But now, if we look at what we'll have in 2025, I can tell you that at the ISA, we already know that there are dozens of companies that are planning to go public. So actually, I'm pretty sure that at the end of the year, we will talk about some very impressive numbers. And so this was, about the IPOs. Now, if we look at the corporate bond markets, and we'll talk about it, more later, but just you to see the number, the corporate bond market, only in 2024, companies raised $25 billion. And it's a very impressive number, and especially considering that, 2024 was a full year of war. And also a very something very special in Israel, institutional investors. So I don't know if you know, but in Israel has the highest savings rates in the world. And one big reason for that is that pension savings in Israel are mandatory. And that's not the case in many countries. And because of that, institutional investors like pension funds manage almost $1 trillion in assets. And that numbers just, keep growing every month. So this is also a very impressive number comparing to when you see the size of the country. And I want also to highlight something important. When it's funny because when people, think Israel, they usually think, okay, Israel is the startup nation. But actually, it's way more than that. And it's way more diverse than just tech. And as you can see here in that slide, TASE gives a wide range of industries to invest in. For example, we have, banking, infrastructure, real estate, oil and gas, energy, insurance, and more. So yes, Israel is a global hub, a global tech hub, but it's more than that. And it's a strong market with many different sectors. And here, when we look, the market cap by sector, we can really see how the capital market has changed in the past 10 years. Well, 10 years ago, Israel was mainly known for industries like manufacturing and healthcare. Everyone knows Teva, which was really dominant in the market. So back then, healthcare and manufacturing were the biggest parts of the Israeli capital market. But when we look at the pie, of 2024, when you look at the market, now the market is much more diverse. And you can see here that, finance, real estate, and tech have grown a lot and are now the largest sectors on TASE. And here, you can see the rise of tech companies on the stock exchange. And we see that, the share of tech companies in the total market cap has grown from 26% to 31%. And why is it so important, this move? It's important because, it means that investors now have direct access to Israeli tech through the public markets rather than, going on private equity. And actually, it's important not only for investors, it's also important for the companies itself, because now Israeli companies see TASE, so the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, as a good place, to raise money. And they choose TASE over the private market or even NASDAQ. This is, the slide that really I want to focus on because it's my main job, it's how to bring foreign investors in the capital market. So as I told you earlier, it's our main goal at the ISA, okay, unless in our department, to bring more and more international investors to Israel. And right now, when you see, foreign investors make up about 20% of the stock market activity. And it's interesting because, despite the war, these numbers stayed fairly stable. When you see 2023, 2022, 2024, it's always about, 20%. And, actually in 2023, right after October 7th, there was, a wave of foreign investors pulling out of the market. But at the early 2024, the trend reversed. Now, we can't say for sure, that the investments coming back are the same ones that left. But when we look at the numbers, it's clear that, foreign investors still have confidence in the Israeli market. And what is pretty funny is that, on the local investments, on the local investment side, so when we talk about, institutional investors, we actually saw during the war the exact opposite trend. Institutional investors viewed the capital market, the market drop, after October 7th as a buying opportunity. So they bought a lot. And that's why, it's maybe one of the key reasons why the TASE remains so resilient and even continue to grow despite the war. So when we are working, to increase those numbers, these 20%, and we work, and to do that, we try to make, key changes. So one of the main key changes in the next year is that on the next January 2026, Israel will align trading days with global markets. So days will shift from Sunday, Thursday to Monday, Friday. And it should be easier like that, for international investors to trade on days because, it's the same days. And we also, another key criteria that we are focusing on is to encourage, Israeli public companies to report in English. Because, well, we know that Hebrew is not the easiest language for international investors. And here you have just, few names, but it really represents, it explains, that our goal is really to put Israel as a key player in global finance, and that to make that happen, we work, to bring more and more financial players in the ground. So if in the past, global investors and market participants like, investment banks, looked at Israel with the distance, today we can say that we see more and more of them here in Israel. And that's just, a few examples. Now, let's talk about, two key strengths that define Israel's capital market. So first, we have the resilience. Actually, it's a word that we use a lot when we talk about Israel. And also we have the consistent growth of the market. Okay, so this slide, showed that every time here in Israel, we had, a war, or there were, an economic event, or like economic world events, the Tel Aviv index drops sharply, then quickly rebounds and performs even better. So here you can see the Tel Aviv index, in blue, and it's compared to the SPX index. It's the S&P 500 index. So you see every time, like there is, like it's decrease and after the increase. So in the long run, when we see those graphs, the trend keeps going up. And it proves how resilient is the market and how fast it recovers. And it's interesting is that, that specific slide, we used to show it, to international investors right after October 7th. And we wanted, to say and wanted to show the V shape and of the index of the Tel Aviv 125, because we wanted, to send a clear message like, don't worry, the market will be okay, it will bounce back just like it always does. And now, we are a year later, even more, and when we look at what actually happened in the Israeli capital market, we see the same V shape, just like in the past. So I will see you just right after. Okay, here, it's exactly that. In green, you have the Tel Aviv 125 index, and it's compared to the S&P in gray, okay, the S&P 500 from 1999 to today. And of course, it includes wars and economic crisis. And by the way, another thing that happened, after October 7th, well, we thought, the question was also, whether TASE of the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange will open as usual the next day, so on October 8th. And after long discussions, it was decided, to keep the market open and to allow trading as usual. And actually, it really shows the Israeli resilience at that point, because it wasn't obvious at all, as you can imagine. For example, after 9/11, the New York Stock Exchange remained closed for few trading days and only reopened on September 17th. And here, it's also shows it's a really great slide actually, because it's just from December 2023 to December 2024. You can see here, so in green, the Tel Aviv index compared to the big indices like S&P 500, DAX, Nike, and you see how Israel recovered well and even did better to some global index. Okay, so here, you can see how it grows. It was really impressive, actually. And this slide, shows corporate bond issuance in Israel from 2023 to 2024. And actually, the issue of corporate bonds is a great indicator of investor confidence in the market. So you see here, in blue, in the first half of 2023, bond issuance remained stable with some ups and downs based on market conditions. After you have, October 2023, when the war began, so issuance dropped sharply. But at the end of 2023 and early 2024, okay, in red, we saw bond issuance back to high levels. And this despite, the big challenges like high interest and war. Okay. Now, okay, we have reviewed the Israeli capital market, its resilience. Now, the key question is, okay, what makes Israel such attractive for foreign investors, okay? And in the following slide, we'll explore Israel's key strengths. Okay, let me give you a few basics. So the Israeli shekel is one of the strongest currencies in the world. Right after October 7th, there was a sharp drop in its value against dollar and euro, obviously, but it recovered very quickly. And now, actually, it returned to the pre-war level. So this rebound shows how investors trust in Israel's market, and also that the monetary policy was well managed by the Bank of Israel. And in the end, shekel remained strong and a stable currency. And why is it important? It's important for international investors because they see actually the shekel like, an opportunity to hedge again volatility and also a way to diversify their portfolio. Israel is also, recognized as a developed market, as we talked about before, by major indices like MSCI. So MSCI places Israel in the same category as economies like US, UK, or Germany. And Israel is also a full member of OECD, which includes leading economies worldwide, and a member of the FATF. It's the international organization that sets global standards for combating money laundering. And as we talked about it a little bit before, but let's dive in now in this very specific area, Israel's corporate bond market. So Israel's corporate bond market is a big strength of the economy and a really interesting opportunity for global investors. And let me explain why. Well, in most countries, corporate bonds are not actually traded on the stock exchange. Instead, they are traded over the counter. We call it OTC. It means that the transactions happen directly between buyers and sellers, or between, between banks and brokers. And this makes the market of the corporate bonds less transparent, less liquid. And also it means that, retail investors like you and me, we don't have usually access to this market. And that's the case in US and also in most of the countries of Europe. And in Israel, it's quite different. It's very different actually, because corporate bonds are traded on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. So it's just like stocks. And that makes the market, more transparent, more liquid, and more accessible to investors. So retail investors like you and me, we can buy bonds on the market. And this is very attractive for foreign companies, actually, that foreign companies that want to raise capital, they would do that here because it's very attractive and it's a very liquid market. And we saw already 37 foreign companies that have issued bonds on Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. And another unique feature of the Israeli capital market is the ability to conduct global offerings on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. So it means that when an Israeli company wants to raise capital, whether through equity or bonds, the company doesn't have to choose between local and international investors. It can raise funds from both. So let me give you an example. I don't know if you know, but the stock exchange, a few years ago, the stock exchange in Israel was owned by the government. But in 2019, it became a public company. And actually, it was the first global IPO in Israel. So the IPO was led by Jefferies, the global investment bank, and it helped to attract international investors. And actually, it was a great success because 90% of the investors were global investors. And another unique feature that we have in our capital market is dual listing. And actually, dual listing is a great example of how the ISA actively works to make the market as global as possible. So dual listing allows companies that are already traded on certain markets to also be traded on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. And all of this without additional regulatory requirements. So, for example, a company that is listed on the New York Stock Exchange can also be traded on TASE without needing to comply with the Israeli regulations. So right now we have about 50 companies that are dual listing on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. For example, big companies like Teva, Elbit, NICE, ICL, etc. And here you can see on the map the exchanges that are included in that dual listing regime. Now, just like we've talked now, about companies, we have the exact same concept applies to ETFs. So first, let me just quickly break down what an ETF is. Well, an ETF is an exchange-traded fund. It's an investment fund that is traded on the stock exchange, just like stocks. But instead of buying a single stock, of a single company, investors in an ETF are actually buying an entire index, like S&P or Tel Aviv 35. So the ETF follows the index. Okay, you have that, for example, BlackRock S&P 500. So it's an ETF issued by BlackRock that follows the S&P 500 index. And ETFs, so they are funds, they are traded on the stock exchange, they are managed by asset managers, and as I said, they track indices, meaning that it's a passive investment because the fund manager tracks an index and doesn't have to decide, which securities he will include in the fund. Now, let's talk about dual listing of ETFs. Well, ETFs are traded on big exchanges like Euronext, can be listed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange in a very simple way. Well, the ETF remains under the regulation of its home country, and it means that there is no extra reporting or compliance obligation in Israel. And actually, I can tell you that that's something that global fund manager are really interested in, and I can tell you that from the feedback we've received from them, during the past business trips we made. And here you can see that right now we have about 9 global exchanges that are eligible for ETF dual listing in Israel, included all the Euronext. And we have about 40 foreign ETF that are traded on TASE, and they were issued by BlackRock and Invesco. So the two of them are very, very big asset managers. And so at the ISA, we really aim to put, English as the default language. And that's the case, in our website, publications, social media updates, investor guides, and also one-pagers. Everything is designed to be accessible to global market participants, so everything is in English. And by the way, after the webinar, I'll send you, one-pagers that we did in our department. And those are one-pagers that we usually share with global investors about the Israeli capital market. And I hope you'll find it useful, and that when in the future, when we speak with the investors, you can send them those one-pagers.
And maybe Shaul, just again, moving in, Shaul will send me all the details, the presentation, obviously. This webinar is recorded. I will summarize everything and send it to you. And we also upload it to our internal FDA portal.
Right.
Shaul, please continue.
Yeah, and also don't hesitate, to add me on LinkedIn after the presentation. It will be a pleasure. So, okay, another strength that we have in the ISA is that, and it's something that's also very important for international investors. And why? Because we have our enforcement power at the ISA is our powers, we have 3, and they are very different from what you will find in other countries. And that's also, the reason why the Israel's capital market is considered safe and well regulated. Well, in Israel, the ISA has 3 types of enforcement powers. We have the criminal, the administrative, and the private enforcement. So criminal enforcement, it's actually a big deal because unlike, the US SEC, which doesn't have this authority, at the ISA, we can actually investigate serious financial crimes like fraud and insider trading. And that means that it's real consequences because it includes fines, but also jail. We have another type of enforcement at the ISA. We have the administrative enforcement, and that allows the ISA to fine directly companies. And the last one is the private enforcement. It means that investors have the right to take legal action to protect themselves. But what is very unique in Israel is that the ISA can even help to fund the class action. Well, till now, we've talked about the strengths of Israel's capital market, but to truly become a part of the global financial system, Israel needs to work closely with international regulators and financial institutions. So here, you can see that the ISA works closely with international regulators, and all of that, to make sure that Israel's capital market meets global standards. So Israel is a full member of IOSCO. IOSCO is the International Organization of Securities Commission, and we are members of 6 committees. So, a few times a year, our department or the responsible of each committee, we go physically and we meet in person, So when we are there, when we are in those countries where the committee happens, we also meet with local market players. And this is where we use, to collaborate with you guys. And we used to meet together with you, local funds, investment banks, and all market players that can be, relevant for us, and market players that are interested, to hear and to learn more about the Israeli public capital market.
If I can, okay, again, just join in, the IOSCO meetings, they are not necessarily taking place only in New York, London, and Paris, but they're going globally, sometimes in countries which we are based in. And from a personal experience, this is a great opportunity to actually work with ISA and arranging a schedule for them, meeting with the kind of investors that they are interested in, and also allows us to open a new kind of network we can work with, not only on the investment side, also the business promotion side, such the CTOs, CIOs of financial organizations through the meetings that we're arranging for ISA. So please, Charlotte, again, apologies for barging in.
Thank you. Okay. And here you can see in that slide, that we made also a few fintech agreements over the years with other regulators. So these agreements help to promote financial innovation and to make cross-border collaboration easier. And in the last years, the ISA signed agreements with regulators like Switzerland, France, New York, Croatia, Hong Kong, and more. Okay, so at the ISA, as Ofer just said, and I've touched before, we work really closely with the trade mission, and many of you have already worked with us or with me especially, and the collaboration were really great and very valuable. And it can be to engage with stakeholders that are interested in the Israeli capital market, but also to organize regulatory roadshows, webinars, one-tables, etc. So, that's it for me today. And thank you everyone for your attention. I hope this session was useful, and I hope it gave you, a clearer picture of Israel's public capital market and the opportunities it offers. And if you ever want to dive deeper into any of these topics or have specific questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to continue the conversation with you, whether it's a one-to-one session or follow-up discussions, what works for you. And if you come, across investors, funds, or financial institutions that are interested in the Israeli public capital market, so we'll be more than happy to participate in the meetings. So I look forward to staying in touch with you. And thank you again.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Charlotte and Shoval, for the very comprehensive presentation. It's a lot of content in a short time, but the idea of this presentation is just to showcase the complexity and attractiveness of the Israeli capital market. And I would like to summarize with 5 takeaways I would like to urge all of you to take from this presentation. First of all, that Israel is hungry for investment. We all know that Israeli venture capital funds are hungry for new limited partners, and Israeli founders of startups are hungry for investors, but also the public companies which are listed in Israel are also seeking for an investment. This is something we need to take in consideration. Second point, the Israel capital market is resilient, as seen on the data with the challenges of the ongoing war, as well as prior challenges in the past. The Israeli capital market index surpassed those of leading markets around the world, and this is one point that we should convey when we engage with investors. The third point is that ISA are the go-to people when you are focusing on Israeli capital market investment. So when you receive a question or you have an interesting lead from a potential corporate or ETF or a pension fund, feel free to engage with ISA. I can tell you from personal experience, they are very accessible and they can provide a lot of value, not only in guiding us, but also arranging a joint call with the investor. Fourth, the Israeli capital market is aligned itself with global trends. As mentioned, the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange will operate on international business days, Mondays till Friday, and more Tel Aviv Stock Exchange listed companies decide to issue their reports in English in order to maximize exposure to global investors. I think that on the monthly, weekly basis, this is something we can definitely share it with the local business community, either in LinkedIn post or something else, or even if you do a presentation to a variety of organizations, this is definitely something you should add to your presentation. And the last point, Israel is a unique and attractive market for investors, such as ETFs, pension funds, etc., but it receives less focus than it should. So it is important that you understand Israel's strong point and know how to convey these strong points to the audience that you are engaging with in the different activities that you are doing. So just before I conclude, as mentioned by Charlotte, the ISA team is at your service to any questions you have. And they also do global visits for IOSCO meetings and other kind of conferences. So they will also, if they have a conference or a visit to your respective geography, they're always keen to engage, to understand why we can complement them in meetings. And again, this is something that we can get out of it as well, because it builds a network for us in subsectors that we don't usually engage with. So I really see it as a win-win situation. So again, thank you very much. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you to Shoval for sharing your presentation. I will send the presentation as well as this video and as well as other marketing materials to all of you. And looking forward to engaging more in the future.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.